Hello Stratford and welcome to Informal Letter Writing with Mrs Rhodes. So today we're going to be moving on from your lesson with Miss Stansfield and taking everything that she has taught you and put that into action. So today we're going to be writing to explain and you're going to be writing your informal letter. So we're going to be looking at writing for text type, audience and purpose. What I would like you to do now is the do now. I'd like you to pause and just write down what are the differences between informal language and formal language. So pause the video and just make a few notes, and we will come back to that later in the presentation to see if you were correct. I also hope that you have done that and that you know what those key words are: to inform, to explain, informal and structure. If you are not sure what those words mean, now is the time to Google them or look them up in the dictionary to make sure you've got the definition of those words in your mind. You should know them because they are regular keywords that we use throughout your English lessons, so they should be very familiar to you. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand and apply the features of informal letter writing. So that means that you know what an informal letter conventions are, and you understand them and you can use them to create an informal letter. You're going to complete the planning of this letter and you are actually going to write your letter. So key things you will need to remember. So when we're looking at a writing question for your GCSEs, we always consider the TAP when looking at a text. So text type is it? Who is the audience for this text? And what is the purpose of this text? Now, this needs to apply to you when you are writing, because in your GCSEs, you will be asked to write like a writer. So you will need to be able to produce one of these pieces of text. So you should always consider that whatever you're writing is written appropriately for a variety of audiences or purposes, that it's structured, so it makes sense, it's ordered logically, there are connectives connecting the paragraphs, and of course, yes, it should be written using paragraphs. So what am I going to ask you to do today? So you're going to write a letter to a Year 6 student. So you might be thinking, Mrs. Rose, why am I writing a letter to a Year 6 student? Well, due to coronavirus, many Year 6 students are not going to have the transition process that you were lucky enough to go through. They won't get the chance to meet the form tutor, do those amazing activities, and to get to know the people in their year group before they start in September. And more importantly, they won't get to ask all those questions that are bugging them, that they're worried about, that they're thinking about, all those things that were bothering you this time last year when you were a worried Year 6 student about to start at Stratford High. So we thought it would be nice for you to share with them your experience of starting at Stratford High from primary school. So you could talk about what a typical school day is like, what worried you, and how you overcame those worries, and what advice would you give to them. It might be a nice way to reassure them that they will cope, that everything will be okay, and even at this very scary time for them, there is a glimmer of hope in the future. And importantly, the final draft of your letter will be sent to students in Year 6 that will be coming to Stratford in September. So this isn't just a task we've come up with to occupy your time. This is a genuine, how can we help the Year 6s? And we will be sending copies of these letters to the Year 6 students to reassure them so they can understand when grown-ups are saying to them, you will be fine, they can actually see people that went through this and were fine. Okay, so we need to tap our task. This is exactly what you would do in your GCSE exam. So the question is, write a letter to a Year 6 student to explain what life is like for a new Year 7 student at Stratford High. So just pause the video for a minute to see if you can work out what the text type, audience and purpose is in this question. So hopefully my colour coding hasn't given it away too much. So our text type is, of course, it's a letter. It's non-fiction writing. It isn't made up. It's based on true events and facts that can be proved. Who's the audience? Worried, anxious Year 6 students about to start at Stratford High. Remember, these are students that are younger than you, so your language will need to be appropriate for that age group. And the purpose? Why are we doing it? Well, to explain what life is like at Stratford High and how it feels to be a pupil at our school, especially a new pupil, and to reassure them that they will be fine, it will be okay. Okay, so you may be thinking, Mrs. Rhodes, it's a long time since I was in the very start of Year 7. I don't remember what it felt like when I was in Year 6. So I've come up with a few things that might help you. So, of course, we're doing a letter for a Year 6 student coming to Stratford High School in September, and your letter needs to explain and inform them about what Stratford High is really like and reassure them they will cope and be happy in school. So what could we write about? Cast your minds back. So we probably are all worried about how people are treated in our school. Perhaps what are the lessons, what are the timings of the day, what are the teachers like, are they nice, are they mean, which I know we're not. Do you get so much homework that you're up till really late at night? The school buildings seem enormous, how will I find my way around? Will I make any new friends? What's canteen food like? Will we go on any trips? What are break times like? What are lunch times like? What do we have to do in the morning at registration? What about getting to school? How will I get to school? Will I be all right? Will I be able to find my way? What about the after school activities? But also, what things, I want you to think about, what things worried you? And more importantly, how you overcame your worries, how you got over those initial problems and bumps in the road that we all experience when we try something new for the first time. That's the sort of information that will help the Year 6s understand that, yeah, things may go a little bit wrong, but you will cope, you will be fine. How are we going to do this then? Well, you're going to use the deforester techniques that you have looked at in previous online lessons, not just your previous newspaper article, but others before that. And you're also going to use informal language, which you looked at yesterday with Miss Stansfield, to help your reader understand that Stratford High School isn't frightening, they will be safe and they will be happy. So this is your chance to explain to students about what it is really like to transition to Stratford High. We want them to know that even though they haven't had the transition process that you did, that they will be all right, they will settle in really quickly and they will adapt to life at Stratford High. Okay, how do you structure a letter? Okay, in a minute I want you to pause this video. I'm going to tease your memory. I know we've done this before. We have written letters in various different formats for various different reasons throughout your school career so far. So I want you to either make bullet points or write a mind map as I have done and just list the letter writing conventions that you can remember. So pause this video and do that now. Okay, let's see how many you remembered. Of course, a letter needs an address. If you're writing a letter, usually you want somebody to write back to you. You have to put your address on there. If you're writing a formal letter, of course, you put the address of the person that you're writing to as well. An ending. It's important that you get the right ending, the right sign-off to your letter, and the right beginning, starting with the dear and then thinking about whether you go for the formal or informal name. A date, everybody wants to know when this letter was written. That can be a key piece of information. Whether you write informally or whether you use formal language, again, that depends on what type of letter you're writing and who you are writing to. And of course, our old femme paragraphs, you need a new paragraph for each new time, place, topic or person you are writing about. And the purpose of a letter is to inform, to explain, to advise, all of those things. Okay, so what format should we use to write a letter to another student and reassure them? So here you've got two examples of letters. Obviously, these are the skeletons. So you can see that there is the same address, your address and date at the top, but then you can see here we've got their address. Here we've got dear sir, madam, or Mrs. or Mr. Here we've got dear Mandy, just a name. And then you can see, explain formally why you are writing, use precise formal language with an official purpose, and then you end with yours faithfully, sir or madam, or sincerely if you're using Mr. or Mrs., and then sign your name. Whereas this one, explain informally why you're writing, main points using chatty, friendly language, and end with love from, hope to see you soon, and sign your name. Well, I hope you've identified this one as the formal letter and this one as the informal letter using the chatty language. We're not going to use this one, excuse me. We're not going to write formally to a year 6 student that is younger than you. We are going to use the informal version. And so that's what we are going for today. So let's just clarify. You start Dear Mandy. Well, you won't start Dear Mandy. You could start Dear Year 6 student. You're going to use friendly, chatty language, and you're going to end with something less formal than yours faithfully or yours sincerely. Now then, we need a structure to our letter to make sure it makes sense and it flows. Just because it's informal and chatty doesn't mean you can just ramble on any old how. So you need to organise your paragraphs so they follow on or link together using connectives. You also need to plan out a brief introduction and a brief conclusion, and you need to end with an appropriate sign-off. So as you can see, we've got the dear to begin with, your explanation or your introduction, the reason that you're writing, you've paragraphs, so 1 point with detail, 2nd point with detail, a 3rd point with detail, your closing sentence, your conclusion, and then your sign off. So even though we're writing an informal letter, you need to stick to a structure. Okay, let's just clarify what I mean by an informal letter, just in case you're not sure. Here you can see a letter, but there are options within this letter. And I want you to rewrite this letter using only the informal options. So as you can see at the beginning, it says, Dear James, how are you? Or, I trust this letter finds you well. You will select one of those, the most informal one, and that is the one that you will write down. Then you will carry on. I've been, now either dead busy or extremely busy since your last letter. So you will carry on writing I've been, and then you will select the most informal option, and so on until you have completed the letter. Pause this video now, no cheating, and write out your letter using only the informal options, and I will go through that with you in a minute. Okay, how did you do? So informal writing is not the same as text speak in your text messages, but it is more like how you would speak to your friends rather than perhaps how you would speak to Mrs. Doward or someone with authority or seniority over you. It should have a casual, chatty and friendly tone, which you should remember from Miss Stansfield's letter. Okay, so let's have a look. Dear James, how are you? I've been dead busy since your last letter. We have to work really hard at school to get ready for our exams. Despite this, I did manage to play a game of football last night with my friends. We won. It was boss. Also, my dad got me a new mobile phone. It's an iPhone 10. Anyway, got to go. Speak to you soon. Please write back. Love from John. Okay. Now, of course, the letter you will write will need a lot more detail, a lot more information than that, and a few more paragraphs. However, it must still, as you can see in that letter, useful sentences, use standard English. None of this gonna, G to G, or however you phrase it, lol, all of that business. Any shortened or texty versions of words are not allowed. So, you will also notice there is punctuation in there for effect. I can see that there are a couple of question marks or exclamation marks. Only one, please, not a whole row of them. You are not doing a text message. So you can see the difference there between that informal language and the more formal language, hopefully. Okay, so I've waffled on now, but we need to create a plan. You need to have a plan of action about what you are going to write. Otherwise, your letter will just ramble. So at this point, I'm just going to try and spark your memory a little bit, cast your mind back to this time last year when you were that little worried year 6 student, not knowing what life at Stretford High was going to be like. And I want you to think about what were your biggest worries and concerns in year 6, and what is the information they need to know. So I've given you some ideas here. I want you to pause this video and I want you to add to it. So can you come up with any other things that you were worried about, concerned about, or things that you think, well, as a year 6, they really need to know this? Pause the video, make some notes. Really important, you need to do this. Okay, so some of the other things you could have put up, apart from how many lessons do you have a day, I'm worried about not being with my friends, getting lost, how to find my classroom. Most children are worried about that, really worried about that. Are you still lost? Would you still be lost if you came back to school tomorrow? No, you would know your way around. How did you achieve that? How much homework are you set? So they may be worrying that they can't manage their time. All the big kids are there and they're all bullies. Is that true? I'm worried about not making any new friends. Did you make some new friends? How quickly did you make new friends? There's going to be new subjects I've not looked at before and I've not learnt before, and there's going to be lots of different teachers. What if they don't like me? Where do we go at lunch times? How do I get to and from school? A timetable? What's one of those? How will I understand it? What about getting changed for PE? What if I forget my PE kit or my school equipment? What happens then? How will I know what homework I've got to do? What if I forget my homework? What will happen then? What if the teachers aren't as kind as my primary teacher? Okay, so those are just some ideas that I've put out there. Hopefully, you've got lots of different ideas down there that you can draw on. So, why have I asked you to do that, and why was that important? Because you're now going to plan in detail what you're going to write. So, looking at that list that you've come up with and that I've come up with of all the various different things that students need to know and things they might be worried about, I want you to pull out key things. I've written questions and answers here, so it just means points. So, pull out 4, 5, 6 different points that you think are the most important. How many spaces have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So 6 different points, and put them in there. So just write them down. Now, pick ones that you know you could write about in some detail, that you can remember how it felt, what you did, and what have you. It's no good just saying something like, oh, the canteen. At break and lunches, we go to the canteen, and then we go outside and play. That doesn't tell them much of anything, does it? It doesn't tell them what the canteen is like. It doesn't tell them what you purchase food-wise in the canteen. It doesn't tell them what the experience of being in the canteen is like. So those details are important. So pick your 6 topics that you're going to write about, and then when I've written answers, so whatever problems or ideas you come up with, I want you to think about how you overcame those issues. If you were worried about it, how did you stop being worried about it? What did you do? So you need to make those notes now. So that's the first step of your plan. So pause the video and quickly pull together your 6 points that you're going to write about, and then your solutions, just briefly to give yourself an idea. And once you've done that, then we go to our structure. So here you can see there are some sentence starters and there is the basic structure of your letter. Obviously there's not the address, the date, the dear, or the ending, but this is the main body of the text. So you can see I've given you a first line of an introduction, and then I've written P1, P2, P3, and then Aspire, P4, P5, P6. So what you're going to do, everybody is going to write 3 paragraphs minimum in their letters, as well as the introduction and the conclusion. And you are going to pull 3 of those points, those questions that you've written down, that you are confident you can write the most about and the most detail about, but you can also reassure students and give them solutions to their worries and their problems. So that's 3 different points. Now, if you're going to push yourself or you want to write in more detail, that would be excellent. The more information we can give these students, the better. So P4, 5 and 6, I've not given you any sentence stems, but I'm sure you can come up with something. If you look at the task that your teacher has put on class charts alongside this film, you will see that there is a task sheet, and on that task sheet there are more sentence stems that you can pick from. So there was ones about the school day. Every morning the bell rings at, explaining how many lessons there are a day, how long they last, talking about subjects that are done at school, talking about after school clubs. So there's lots and lots of ideas on there, so have a look. There is also a word bank with some key, interesting and varied vocabulary that you can use that isn't too complex, but does make your writing that little bit more interesting. And you can also see on there that there is even an anecdote, so you could include an anecdote about your experience in Year 7. So that would help them feel less daunted, knowing that problems can be overcome. Anecdote, of course, being a story, obviously it's non-fiction, so it's a true story, something that happened to you or something that you did that you can tell them about that will make them feel better. Okay, so to help you write your letter, there's a lot of information here. So there is the what, how and why that we went through earlier on, just to remind you. There is some success criteria. So these are the things you must have in your letter. Obviously, informal letter writing conventions. DeForest techniques in there somewhere to try and help bring what you're saying to life and to keep it interesting. There is also, you must have a clear informal writing voice. Of course, there must be paragraphs, but they must be logical. They must follow on. It must follow a structure, and also correct punctuation and punctuation used for effect. Please also try to vary your sentences. That helps people stay engaged in your letter. It doesn't make it boring that way. And your DeForest techniques needs to help them picture what is going on and what you're writing about. So there you can see there are some of those sentence stems. So I would suggest that if you're writing, perhaps refer back to this continually to make sure that you've covered everything that you need to. And of course, when you think you've finished, proofread your work. Read through it, look for spelling mistakes, look for missing punctuation, missing capital letters. Names need capital letters, starts of sentences need capital letters. So make sure you've checked it. If you're going to challenge yourself, use a thesaurus to avoid repeating vocabulary. Use at least one language technique, maybe try and use one in each paragraph. Summarise your points, remain in the past tense. You're telling them about what happened when you were a Year 6 student coming into Stretford High School. That's in the past, it needs to be the past tense. And have you written a conclusion that would make the student want to come to Stretford High and not just worried them even more? You've offered solutions to their worries and problems. Now, write your letter. Be kind, be thorough, be creative. And when you've finished, your English teacher will be in touch with details of when you need to complete this task and when you need to submit it for marking. They will provide you with support. You can email us. There will be live lessons that you can come into. Use these PowerPoint slides to help you with your letter writing. If you're not sure about what you've done, email it to a friend, get them to check it. Or an older sibling. This writing test will be marked by your teacher. You must submit it on the date you are given. And remember to use all the skills you've been learning about in all of these lessons so far. Why don't you have a go at writing an informal letter about life in lockdown and actually posting it to someone? That's so nice to receive something like that through the post. Or send it by electronic mail to a friend to peer assess. Remember, we're trying to show these Year 6 students that Stretford High is a caring place, that they will cope, that they will adapt. And I'm sure you are really missing being at school, just like we are all missing you. So I hope it isn't long before I'm seeing you all. Take care, stay safe, see you soon. Write your letter and submit it to your teacher. Bye, Stratford.